Alright, good day, hi and welcome. We'll see what's going to happen here. Well, still a hint of roughness there. So I got the EGR valve completely disconnected. I hit it hard enough, but that should be it's either my crankshaft sensor or my camshaft sensor. Not too sure what sensor that is. Yeah, so I just gave it a, this good tap. This is a special tool. You buy it, I'll sell them to you for about 50 bucks. You can sell like a couple thousand of these. I could solve my problem by buying another truck. So it sounds like a Hemi. So what I did is I just put my EGR valve, I'll have to tape it up and stuff like that. There's a hint of a miss in there. So what I need to know is, by bypassing your EGR valve, and just like that, like the EGR valve itself is still on the machine, but the hose part is actually disconnected, right? So does that, does that make a potential for the EGR, like to cook? Somebody said it could cook my rear exhaust or my exhaust valves without a tune. Now the EGR valve itself only works on basically idle and startup, right? Like, am I risking the truck? I know it's designed to have it on there, but what I'm saying is, am I really risking the truck? The engine light's still on. We'll take it for a really short test drive. So as you see, I got it just hanging there for now. Like, everything sounds good, and I do notice that the last few times it's done it, it tends to do it. Okay, I'm just going to open the windows. It tends to do it if with the engine, kind of cold. But see, I can still get a hint of a miss. I'm just going to see if it's going to do it. I'm not going to drive it far. We'll just see if we get our flashing light there. Like, power-wise, that's just the brake thingy. I know I mention it every time. I'm just going to drive through the field, because past two times it's stalled by the time I got to my brother's. Seatbelt. Okay. So the check engine light could be one of like 50,000 things. Like, you should see when you get a check engine light, the code book. It's like the amount of codes that my cousin, she's probably wondering what I'm doing. Testing my truck. I'm testing my truck. Right? Okay, that's thunder. Yeah, that's what he does. Like, I mean, I felt the front of the truck lifting on that one. That was kind of cool. But see, the past 2 days, or the 2 runs with this. Okay, now I'm gonna do. So the engine isn't warm yet. It did it like really, really early on, so I'm gonna shut it off. So theoretically, my valve should be closed. The only thing I'm worried about is like the gases, if they're trapped in there, do they just go back out the normal exhaust? Which, if that's the case, in theory, there should be no extra temperature change for the exhaust valve. The exhaust shouldn't get hotter. In theory, right? Like, I'm not a mechanic. I'm just a guy that is, you know, taking unnecessary risks because I'm poor. You know what I mean? I haven't made enough money to be able to take it to a licensed mechanic, and I can't find a licensed mechanic. Oh, well, there's one guy that might take it, but and actually do work on it. Like, all the mechanics around here, all they do is, well, it depends who it is. For some guys, they'll rebuild an entire engine. For other guys, it's like, okay, we'll do your tires and your oil changes, and that's it. And I still desperately got to get the oil changed. Like, I'm hoping that light is just because of the old oil and that I've actually solved the problem. But it appears that I have not solved the problem the past 2 runs. So this truck has conked out on me a couple of times on camera. I don't know if you can clearly see what's happening when it does conk out. Right? So it used to be engine light would be off. Then the engine light would come on, and then the engine would start running rough, a little bit rougher, and then you'd get a complete, you know, like the 300 code I got was a multi-cylinder misfire, right? And then the rest of the other 6 codes were, or 5 codes were EGR valve related, right? So I thought it was that. So I bought an EGR valve, and in the process of trying to change them, I broke the first bolt, so the tube was there, and then you guys saw how, you know, when the truck run with just the tube go sucking in air, it was pretty funny. Not ha-ha funny, but bizarre funny. Then what happened was I patched it up, and all of a sudden the truck ran smooth. The engine light was off. I took it for a couple of test runs. Everything was good. And on the second test run, it just went to flashing light, and, you know, ditched the truck to the side of the road before I caused an accident, kind of thing. Started up. It's been running with a slight miss ever since, but okay. But usually in the morning, when I head out, you know, I make it to the end of the driveway, and that's when I get my, you know, flashing engine and whatever. So I'm going to let it sit for about 5 minutes, because usually it's on the restart on the, you know, like a lot of times I can drive where I want to go, because it doesn't do it all the time. That's the problem. It doesn't do it all the time. Like, there's no consistency of when it's going to do it. It's doing it a lot more frequently, right? So, but I do find when I stop, and if I stop, like say I'm working for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I can start up, and again, you see it starts up just fine. There's no stalling at the light kind of thing. It's while you're driving. It could be while you're sitting. Like, there's no, like the stalling at the light thing. It's not that. This is like more random than that. This is that you could be driving down the highway and engine dies, and then you lose your power steering, and you know, you can't steer the truck properly, and you end up killing somebody else or yourself, right? So you can see why I desperately want, like, this is a fatal flaw. I definitely want it fixed. But if running the EGR valve, there's a lot of mixed emotions on the internet that I'm finding of running it, not running it. And I haven't found anybody that said this will kill your car. This will kill your truck if you run it without it. I haven't found that. I see a lot of people doing the delete thing. So, like, if you're saying, yeah, it's going to kill your car within 5 years, okay, fine, I don't care. You know, like, if I get 5 years out of this truck, I'll be like, I'm lucky if I get another month out of it. You know what I mean? So would that heat up, like I don't know if that would heat up the exhaust valves. And if so, you know, like is it something that would actually cause valve failure in the truck by doing this? Because that tells me how much more of a gamble, you know, and I want to hear from people that know, not speculate, because I don't know. I want to know, like, is that like, yeah, it's a guaranteed that's going to happen to you? Or is it like, nah, it's a gamble, dude. It might happen to you, it might not. Then that tells me how more brave I'll be with the truck, because like, do I park the truck? What do I do? You know what I mean? Till I get it fixed. But you know, if I park the truck, like I'm in my busy season now, I don't have time to drop the truck off at a mechanic for 2 months, you know, because that's usually what it takes, right? So.